Relationships between consumers and the large companies running the games industry have been what you might call strained for quite some time now. With corporate leaders constantly looking for the next big scheme to squeeze every penny out of customers with concurrent user spending, the disdain for many of the publishers in the AAA landscape has never been higher. As I'm sure a lot of you are aware of by now, recent news has come about that games publisher Take-Two is going to release a separate version of 2K21 on next-gen consoles for the baffling price of $70. This, of course, also came with the news that they would not be participating in any of the next-gen upgrade programs, like Xbox's Smart Delivery, but instead are going to charge gamers $100 for a special edition of the current-gen game that includes the next-gen upgrade. This really comes as no surprise though, as Take-Two have shown time and time again why they are hands down the most deplorable publisher in recent times, with their handling of the 2K series and the egregious monetization of GTA Online. Hell, even EA has made strides to better themselves and be more consumer conscious, with them starting by actually listening to their players by cutting back on loot boxes, making single player experiences, and introducing a free next-gen upgrade system called Dual Entitlement. That's not to say their hands are washed clean, but it is a good first start for a publisher who has not exactly had the best relationship with its customers. Take-Two and 2K deciding to not participate in the free upgrade programs isn't even what's most surprising. No, it was the fact that if bought separately, their next-gen version of the game will set gamers back a shocking $70. Right now, it is unclear if others will follow suit, but if one company gets away with it, you can be sure the rest will hop aboard the $70 train in a heartbeat. For over a decade now, $60 has been the default price for games, with remakes and remasters typically being $40, and small publisher and indie games typically being around $20 to $30. Of course, saying that modern AAA games cost $60 is for the most part a lie. With their greedy microtransactions, loot boxes, and season passes, many games exceed what we can only call the $60 entry fee. But I'll entertain the thought for a moment. A lot of corporate mouthpieces and corporate sympathizers will try to tell you that games were bound to increase in price. With a huge rise in cost to develop video games, it would seem like a natural response that charging more to make up for that is necessary. But that in fact is not the case. You see, there's another very important factor that comes into play when scrutinizing this belief, and it is the fact that gaming has taken a significant leap in popularity in the last decade. Gaming is now one of the largest entertainment mediums and is by far the most profitable. So let's take a look, and let's use one of my favorite game series and one of Take-Two's other IPs to show this, Grand Theft Auto. I'll use GTA San Andreas, GTA 4, and GTA 5 as my examples, all three of which were $60 at launch. Let's first take a look at Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. The game came out in 2004 on PS2 and in 2005 on Xbox and PC, and is estimated to have cost the subsidiary Rockstar around $100 million to develop. At the time, it was one of the most expensive games to ever be produced and took around 3.5 years to develop. Typically, after things like manufacturing, distribution, platform licensing, and retail margins, blah blah blah, publishers take in about 50% of a game's sales. And that's towards the lower end, with digital sales providing even higher revenue for publishers. Now, doing some quick math, we can find that a budget of $100 million and at 50% return from a $60 game, San Andreas would need to sell 3.32 million copies at full price to start making a profit. When you consider the game has sold in excess of 27 million copies, I have no doubt that Rockstar and Take-Two made their money back. Obviously, not every game sells that many copies, but at the same time, not every game costed $100 million to make. Take a quick look at a smaller game from the PS2, Jak 2, which cost Naughty Dog and Sony about $15 million to develop. So if the budget for Jak 2 was $15 million, it would only need to sell 500,000 copies at $60 before it starts making a profit. Considering the game got a greatest hits release after selling 1 million copies, I think it's safe to say it reached its goal. So you get the picture then. Okay, let's move on to the next generation of consoles. Grand Theft Auto 4 for the Xbox 360, PS3, and PC was estimated to cost around $100 million, much like San Andreas. Taking our previous number that 3.32 million copies would need to be sold at $60 to make a profit, we know that the game easily beat that number by selling 3.6 million copies on its first day alone. Impressive. Okay, now let's analyze GTA 5. The game had a staggering budget of $265 million and needed to sell 8.8 million copies. Well, as with the previous title, GTA 5 managed that in one day and sold 11.2 million copies in its first 24 hours. Maybe these are just anomalies, you might think, and I thought so too, honestly, so here are some current gen games. I've looked at their budget, the amount needed to break even, and the amount sold in a short amount of time to see how they measure up to these previous examples. So, as you can see, we have a game like Horizon Zero Dawn, which had a budget of around 50 million and needed to sell 1.66 million, and it sold 2.6 million copies in 2 weeks. A game like God of War, 44 million, 1.46 million needed to break even, 3.1 million sold in 3 days. Red Dead Redemption 2, 100 million, 2.32 million needed, 12 million in 3 days. The Last of Us Part 2, 150 million, 5 million needed, 4 million in 3 days. Obviously, these are not exact numbers and they don't take into account every detail, but they do give you a glimpse into game sales and profits. Now, one thing you might notice about all of these is that besides Red Dead Redemption 2, all of these games are exclusively single-player games with no microtransactions or loot boxes. But even Red Dead Redemption 2 was single-player at launch, so the same still applies. What's more is that most of this data doesn't even include the digital sales, which make up a larger and larger portion of video game sales every year. Unquestionably, publishers are making huge profits off of games with them still being priced at $60, showing that both the budgets and the popularity of the medium is rising together, which is why it still makes sense that games can cost $60. What is maybe the most infuriating thing about suggesting that games on next gen should cost $70 is the fact that the first game to adopt this pricing model will be NBA 2K21. When I tried to find the budget for the recent games in the 2K series, there was nothing to be found. That being obvious, of course, as gamers would absolutely lose their shit if they found out how little effort is put into these regurgitated yearly sports releases. I can't even really find much data on its early sales numbers either, but at the time of this video, 2K20, last year's game, has sold around 12 million copies, meaning it is in no way struggling to make ends meet. Think about that. That is purely just the sales of the base game, which I can guarantee more than makes up for its budget. I'm actually offended when Take-Two has the absolute nerve to say that they're going to charge $70 for 2K on next gen. Why? Because the game has what is hands down the most egregious monetization schemes in gaming, borrowing the crappiest parts of EA's FIFA, where you spend real money on card packs to build your dream team, because if you ever tried to actually earn those packs through gameplay, it would be a hair-pulling grind that few gamers would want to take part in. This is obviously done intentionally to encourage players into compulsive spending, as nobody has the time to unlock these through so-called legitimate gameplay. Taking a look at the FIFA series, EA has said many times in their shareholder meetings that they have gained billions just in card pack sales alone, so I can only surmise that the 2K series is equally as prosperous. So even with the billions of dollars they're taking in from microtransactions, a minuscule budget, not offering a free next-gen upgrade, and still being one of the highest selling games each year, Take-Two wants to charge $70 for this game? That is the biggest load of bullshit I have ever heard. And sympathizers love to defend these AAA publishers by claiming microtransactions are a necessary evil to prevent game prices from rising. So let me get this straight. You're telling me that when 2K releases on next gen because it is now priced higher, it's not going to have microtransactions? Because I very highly doubt that, and I don't think many of us are falling for that charade either. Take-Two is making more from selling player packs alone than they ever made from the sales of the actual game, which is precisely why NBA 2K21 should not cost $60 and in fact should be a free-to-play game. Now before I end this video, I want to be clear. I am not trying to tell you how to spend your money. If NBA 2K21 is a game you're passionate about and still feel it offers value for your money, then by all means, don't let me tell you what to do. I'm guilty of buying games that have predatory tactics as well. I mean, hell, I've bought GTA 5 3 times and will probably buy it again on next-gen consoles. We've seen time and time again that these organized boycotts just aren't enough to make publishers pay attention. So really, I just want to give you the information you need to make sure you're always making an informed purchase and not being tricked by side-talking publishers. So what do you guys think? Is $70 asking too much for NBA 2K21? Are there any games worth $70? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure to like and subscribe to see more video game discussions, essays, and reviews. While you're at it, hit the bell icon so YouTube can pressure you to watch my next video, and make sure to check out my Instagram if you're curious to see what video games I'm currently playing. With that, I've been TheNamesJER. Thanks for watching. See you later!